Welcome to Chapter 3, Part 1. This section moves us into ecology and the biosphere. So Section 1 kind of focuses on what is ecology, moves into the levels of organization, which we have already talked about, kind of talks about some different methods that we can gather information. So ecology. Ecology is a scientific study of interactions among organisms and between organisms and their environment and surrounding. So when we did biology, remember it was the study of life. Ecology, again, we anticipate is study of the interactions. Just some background information. It was first coined in 1886 by Ernest Haeckel, based on a Greek word oikos, meaning house. His kind of take on this was that he saw the living world really as a household that had an economy, and different organisms have a role in that. And there's different kind of levels and different types of households, which we'll get into. So this is what he was kind of talking about, the different households, different levels. Again, this should all look pretty familiar to you because we just did the levels of organization already. The only one that's going to be a little bit different is this idea of a biome. So remember we had other things a little bit lower on the more molecular, cellular level. So we had cell down here. Then you had groups of cells. So for these, again, just for the purpose of this class and this chapter, we're not really going to focus on groups of cells or cells. We're really going to be looking at kind of these bigger levels, and especially when we start talking about the different ecological methods that we're going to use to get the data. We'll go into more information about what a biome is. Basically, it's similar ecosystems. The following slides will go over each of these in a little bit more detail. Alright, so starting at our lowest level, the organism. It can also be called a species. And a species is a group of organisms so similar to one another that they can breed and produce fertile offspring. So that is kind of the key behind this. Breed and produce fertile offspring, meaning then the offspring themselves can go and breed. Example, so a species, Canadian goose, that type of thing. So again, they breed, produce fertile offspring. The next level then was a population. So remember, a population is a group of individuals that belong to the same species and live in the same area, so the same geographical area. And it is possible to have several different populations of the same species because they may not all inhabit the same area. So again, just a slight distinction there. Populations have to be the same species and the same area. The community, our next level in our levels of organization, also assemblages a number of different populations that live in a defined area. So they have to have a defined area and interact with each other. So different populations live in a defined area and they have to interact. A community consists of only living organisms. That's going to be the distinction between our next level of our ecosystem. Interactions between species occur in three ways. So competition, predation, and mutualism. And this is some of the stuff that we will talk about and we did in the Oh Dear activity in class. Our next level up is the ecosystem. This is a collection of all the organisms that live in a particular place together with their living, non-living, and physical environment. Collection of all the organisms. This includes everything living, non-living, and again, the key here is in a given area. Usually the area defined as small, such as a forest or a lake system. Biome, this is our new one. So we'll start at a biome is a group of ecosystems that have the same climate and similar dominant communities. So remember, these communities are these populations, these species that are interacting in a specific area. And again, you can just look at the map here. It gives you an idea of some of the major biomes that are in the world today. So this is our new one. It's that step above the ecosystem and a step below the biosphere. Our last one here, the biosphere is the part of the earth in which life exists, including land, water, air, atmosphere. It extends from 8 kilometers above the Earth's surface to as far as 11 kilometers below the surface of the ocean. Interactions within the biosphere produce a web of independence between organisms and the environment in which they live. A web of interdependence between organisms and the environment in which they live. All right, this is the last piece of section 1, and this is where we're just going to touch briefly on the different types of methods used in ecological research. And there's 3 main types: observing, experimenting, and modeling. You should be pretty familiar with observing and experimenting. Again, these are part of kind of that scientific method, observing lots of time, just looking for specific information, both qualitative and quantitative data. The experimenting, you're going to have an independent and dependent variable, and you're trying to test out a hypothesis. Modeling is a little bit different, and this has to go with the idea that models can help us gain some insight into some very complex phenomena and over maybe a longer range. So something like the effects of global warming, the models are going to consist of a bunch of mathematical formulas and datas that allow for some predictions. Lots of times this data has been gathered through observations and experiments, and it all gets put into this mathematical model that allow for predictions that are often very helpful. So when we talk about global warming, again, they can take core temperatures, temperature of the atmosphere, sea levels, all of that type of stuff that may go into a model that help. And these models are super important as we look at, planning for towns and cities, natural disasters, that type of thing. So there's a lot of different models. We talk about the weather models as well, and that's just another way that we can gain some more information or predict what might be coming. So this concludes part 1.